Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this very important program today. I am Denise Albitz. I'm the Research Platform Director for Westchester Biotech Project. And today we're talking about the global impact of war in Ukraine on clinical research. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Michael Welling. He is the co-founder of the Westchester Biotech Project. So Michael?
Thank you, Denise. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. And we truly appreciate you joining us today for, as Denise said, this important subject that warrants discussion and warrants exploration. Unfortunately, this subject warrants as such. And I think you'll hear from some individuals and some organizations that are doing tremendous work, as well as some ways that we will be able to try and support them in their efforts as this war in Ukraine continues on. Next slide, please. I want to thank our cohort co-chairs under this clinical research program, Elaine Bedenko and Daria Karine, who you will be hearing from later. This subject, this initiative today is really squarely the result of their interest and desire to highlight the needs that currently exist in Ukraine and to bring together our community to try and figure out ways in which we can support everyone. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. The Westchester Biotech Project. We are an organization that has been around for over 5 years. We were brought together. You can actually move to the next slide there. We were brought together both through and Joanne Geer, my co-founder and partner in this, through our shared vision of a need to bring together researchers, data scientists, engineers, and those communities that support them for the purpose of furthering human health solutions, addressing challenges, and solving problems to make our world a better place. This really stemmed from a personal experience that I had, which I'm happy to say as of today is a happy ending story with my now 16-year-old son and an experience we had for him. But obviously we saw and recognized that this need is never ending, and today is an example of that. And so we are thrilled to have this conversation today, which speaks so much to the mission that Joanne and I started with way back when. Next slide, please. We have sort of three main focus of our organization, and that is our Blueprint 2030, which we also call the science economy. How can we make tomorrow a better day in the world of research? We have our career consortium, which speaks directly to training from elementary school to high school to college to postgrad, postdoc, and all the way through the lab, ways in which we can support training and opportunities. And then we have our focus on the lab of the future, creating that environment with which the research and the decisions and the discoveries are going to happen tomorrow to help solve those problems. Next slide, please. Obviously, this work cannot be done without the unbelievable support of all of our partners, many who are on the call today, some of whom you will hear from. And as you see this list on this slide, these names represent from public to private to local to global to support services to frontline research and care. We are so appreciative of all of the contributions these folks have made. And just like today, many of the programs and much of the work that we do is a direct result of the feedback that we have received from our partners, from our community about questions, challenges, issues, matters, world conditions that warrant discussion, exploration, and conversation. If there are any names on this screen of individual organizations that you would like to be connected to, or that you think that you have a solution for, or if you want to see your name up on this screen, we strongly encourage you to reach out to Joanne, to Denise, to myself, to have a conversation about possible introductions, about ways we can support you, and about ways we can support sort of the collaborative nature of our organization. And speaking of collaboration and partners, there is no better partner to the Westchester Biotech Project than the gentleman you're going to hear from next, the External Relations VP of Montero Language Services, based over in Spain, but with a heavy footprint here in the US, with a heavy interest and recognition of our community and the value that we can bring collectively. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce our friend, Fritz Henke. Fritz, are you there?
Hello?
There you go. Welcome, Fritz.
Thank you, Michael. I think many of you guys already know me. For others, I will just make a brief presentation about it. Montero Language Services is a company which is on the market, international market, since almost 20 years. And we cover everything from technical translation over to interpreting and transcription, as well as transcreation and localization, which was already mentioned. We have been partnering with Westchester Biotech Project now for almost 3 years. And I think personally, our collaboration has been very pleasant and successful. So thank you very much once again to Joanne, to Denise, and Michael, of course. I am very glad to be present today, just to tell you about, well, the awful and crazy situation as of today in Europe. I am at home in Spain, in Madrid. This is where our company is based. And I can only tell you that weeks ago already, my youngest daughter and her boyfriend, they hosted a couple of young refugees from Ukraine in their house. Now everything is better organized, and I think they are really good hands. As well as my sister did in Germany. She hosted a young mother with her child, and they are all okay, and everything seems to be well organized for the refugees, at least, of course, for the people which are staying over there with such, let's say, well-minded, defending their country and so on. We are standing all for Ukraine, I believe, in Europe, and I think in the US as well. When it comes to donation, a couple of weeks ago already in our company, Montero, our board members decided not to do any donation with the company by itself, but all the board members agreed to do this by themselves personally. Because every major bank in Spain as of today has such an account where you can send in very safely the donation. On the other side, from the point of view of our business, we have not noticed any disruption because we are doing mainly translations and localization actually for the intellectual property and for clinical research, of course. In terms of clinical research, our company has no relation at all so far with a company in the Ukraine or in Russia. It's not one of our favorite language combinations. This is the reason for it. Now, In terms of intellectual property, what I understand that the filings of patents in Russia has been decreased heavily. So all major companies are not filing in Russia as of today. This is what I heard and read from information of the WIPO in Switzerland, which is the international entity which is giving all these kind of reports. It belongs to the United Nations. And in the Ukraine, I believe due to the current situation, it will be more or less the same, but for different reasons, of course. Thank you very much. Specifically here for Daria and Ellen, which are members of the team such a long time already. I really hope from heart that your families or your relatives are not so much affected. And I hope this as well for the rest of the participants, which may have some family over there. Thank you very much, and I really invite you to have a splendid round table. Thank you.
Thank you, Fritz. Much appreciated, and for all of your friendship and support. It is now my pleasure to turn this over to Daria Karine, our co-chair for today's event, to kick off the program.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Fritz. It's great to be here. I am very, very, very passionate and excited about this roundtable. My name is Daria Karine. I have been part of Westchester Biotech for about 3 years now. Kind of stumbled on these guys by accident, I guess you could say. Attended a great breakfast pre-COVID that was up in Westchester and just totally fell in love with the mission and the vision that this project has. So it brings together all aspects of the life science integration platform. Myself and Ellen are really focused more on the career clinical research consortium piece. So clinical research has been part of my life now for about 17 years. I am a nurse. I have a pretty heavy clinical background, but research has taken its course. It's really, to me, the future of our healthcare and medicine. And when we were discussing a little bit while ago what our next roundtable discussion should be, Ukraine came right pretty much on the front line. I have been dear friends with Ellen for, I don't know, about 10 years now. Yeah, right? Maybe more. We were joined together in a clinical research trial. So she worked at one of the clinical sites that I was working with at Temple, and we connected immediately. We pretty much think the same. Our passions are the same. Our drives are the same, I guess you could say. So with everything going on in Ukraine, I have been speaking to Ellen quite frequently on a personal level. Ukraine came into my life, I guess, about really 3 years ago. My youngest son, Sean, went over in the Peace Corps and did almost 2 years in Ukraine in the area of economic development, and worked on a civil level in Prilupki. And he was over there, was going to stay over there for a little while longer to complete his course. However, he got evacuated due to the pandemic. So Ellen has been an incredible support system for me. When Sean went over there, she just reached out and gave me all different kinds of contacts he was able to connect with. But my son's journey there was nothing but inspirational. He always talked about the strength of the Ukrainian people. He had a deep understanding and love for his host families. And I know this has been a heavy one to wear. So I will introduce my dear friend, Ellen Bendenko, who I'm sure you guys all know very well. And I am really looking forward to the speakers. I really appreciate your time doing this for us. And thank you for joining Westchester Biotech today. Okay, Ellen, you take it.
Thank you so much, Daria. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I'll go straight to the point. I'm from Kharkiv, Ukraine. That's a city on the border with Russia that's been heavily shelled. I've also been a nurse for many, many years, and I've been in clinical research for about 20 years. So as Daria said, clinical research, connecting people has always been on the forefront. And of course, when the war happened, I immediately started thinking of what's going on with the patients, with study participants in Ukraine, especially because my previous, one of my recent jobs was clinical trial educator for a trial that involved sites in Ukraine and patients in Ukraine. I did not personally interact with those patients because I'm based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but our global team had clinical trial educators from Ukraine, from Russia, from everywhere in Europe. So I would like to share a little bit of statistics that we got from clinicaltrials.gov, and courtesy of Roman Simin, who downloaded and worked with the data for me. So let me just pull up. I apologize. It's been a bit challenging because I'm actually going to present Svetlana Gramatiuk slides as well. So now they're because she's not able to at the moment. So here you go. Ukraine has been an up-and-coming clinical trial country. Mind you, the journey to the global clinical trials has started in Ukraine probably in the late 90s, but the growth has been exponential. So as you could see here, back in 2000, probably nothing was really going on. No clinical research that was registered on clinicaltrials.gov. However, as you could see, every year, the number of clinical trials has been growing. Currently, as of 2021, 800 clinical trials have been registered on clinicaltrials.gov that have Ukrainian sites, meaning the doctor's offices that enroll patients into the trials. So I would like to focus on oncology for now, just to illustrate the impact of what was going on in Ukraine and what's happening now. So altogether, we could see that there have been 508 oncology clinical trials registered for Ukraine in 2002. I would like to explain that perhaps not all trials are registered with clinicaltrials.gov. However, the vast majority of the trials nowadays are. So when we downloaded the data and looked at this information, 114 trials were listed as active, not recruiting, which means that the patients, the participants already received treatment or are going to receive treatment further or are in follow-up. So actively being followed up at the doctor's offices that do clinical trials. And then 115 more trials, 115 trials are supposed to be actively recruiting, meaning they were open to new participants, which of course, as we know now, it's not happening. I also looked at the number of trials that were projected to enroll in 2022. I looked at the trials that are currently open, and then I looked at how many trials were actually in preparation stages, ready to enroll. And there were a total of 230. As you could see, it's almost a double of what was going on in 2021 for enrollment of new participants. And it's as Svetlana Gramatiuk was going to, and another speakers are going to highlight as well, the impact of, from my perspective as a clinical trials coordinator, as somebody who worked in feasibility and for pharma, for CROs, the impact of the war in Ukraine, just like any natural or man-made disaster, unfortunately, is both local and global. And today, I'm inviting you to become a part of the community that I've been very, very lucky, thanks to Daria, I've been a part of for several years now. Community of Westchester biotech folks. They're very caring, inquisitive community that has never shied away from a challenge to tackle a question, issue, or problem and create new projects and collaborations. So with that, hopefully at the end, once we go through the presentation, get to the roundtable part, we will discuss what can we do going forward to be more, as a global clinical research community, to be more prepared again for tough times. And I'm going to throw in the first idea, a clinical research hub. So with that, I guess I will be introducing Svetlana Gramatiuk, but she texted me that she's not able to somehow join on her laptop, unfortunately. So
She's on. She's on.
Oh, she's on?
She's on.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, so we're good. I don't have to drive the slides or anything. Like, see, this is totally like what we do here, isn't there? You know, we have to figure things out on the fly. And because we're spread out all over the globe, I see people from obviously United States. I see people from Ukraine. Hello, and you know, from Spain, from Austria. So everybody's welcome. So here comes Svetlana Gramatiuk.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Svetlana Gramatiuk. I am President Ukraine Associated of BioBank. And
Excuse me, Svetlana, are you able to put your camera on?
Yeah. And it's not see my camera? Yeah.
No, not yet.
I see her.
Yeah, I see her.
I see her,
Yeah.
Joanne.
Yeah, I see her.
Oh, okay.
I see her very good.
Oh, good, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you can
Sorry.
make the slides full screen because we're seeing the notes too.
Yeah.
So I've been, I'm going to share the slides because I think Svetlana is on her phone.
Okay. Oh, I see. Good idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Ah, there you are.
Okay.
Ellen, if you can pick display settings at the top and just switch right at the very top of the screen. If you click on the drop down for display setting, no, there. And then just, yeah, swap and you'll see the full screen. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Svetlana,
It's, yeah.
ready? Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's Ukraine Associated Biobank state-of-the-art facility in the health and medical research opening in the September 2017 in this associated and purpose-built facility, largely purposed in the collection model, cost regularity, enability flexibly service delivery, and support office as a health and medical research operated by Ukraine Associated Biobank Health Pathology. Ukraine Associated Biobank, the founding of the rapid expanding donated biomedical science in the Ukrainian molecular and genetic epidemiology, molecular pathology, pharmacogenomic, pharmacoproteomics, and principle for sustainability in biobank. This, please, next slide, Helen. Its model network components may or may not be bounded. The contacts, the author building agreements, for example, the Ukrainian Associated Biobank. Such kind of biobank structure goes one biobank, and standardization according to requirements international system, to which samples send storage from clinical, medical centers and medical academic university. The model provides the most economical advantage of Ukrainian have like to state support this simplification of the system logistic and the financial stability. In the next slide. The preclinical research reproducibility to the left lower is the BioBank supplies human biosamples for research, enables relevant research, enable derivatives, models, cell lines, organoids, and the patient delivery xenographics. Biosamples availability, quality determines the research can be undergrad. The next slide. The life stage of the planning and the running in the biobank, the step one at the setup facility and the Harvard, the recruiting staff establish and the test system, and the step two operated, apply the system, recruiting project and the samples, and the lean and the employment. And the step three, example and concluded. Apply the lessons read and the lesson consolidation. And the next slide, it's the collection management of samples in the Ukraine Associated Biobank. The collection process is done the same as of peace and the old site, and the samples document the IT system in this transferred the central lab, and central lab accreditation ISO in the management and ISO laboratory control. And 2 years ago in this ISO biobank and biotechnology. In the next, in the next slide. And sustainability plan is have Ukraine Associated Biobank, have department and CRO in the clinical research operation. And
we don't see the slide.
And this I not see slide.
Apologies.
I'm really sorry for disturbing, but the slide may be crucial. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is opened the department and the sustainability plan, and the clinical research department have clinical research study in oncology and endocrinology, and have a free clinical trial in the Ukraine Associated of Biobank. And the next slide, in this at the final stage, of the formation of the Ukrainian Associated Biobank, is this Institute of Biostem Cell Rehabilitation, joint provided financial stability and further development. The Ukraine Associated Biobank collaboration, this institute has begun the clinical study, treatment post-virus fibrosis and liver cirrhosis using mesenchymal stem cell. And this have clinical trials using stem cell in the patient diabetic 2 type and patient with premature ovarian future. In the next slide, in this, it's a global impact is worn in Ukrainian clinical research concentrations. The put together the medical investigation in the Ukraine. Currently, the terms more grants in the pulling the experimental drugs from people who is meeting this desperate needs their own forcing patients that continue with the trials of, in the community today, the trial site of the tomorrow bomb on the targets. Medical facility is the trial of the recoveries is ready at the site. In March, in the World Health Organization committed 16 attack on the medical facility in Ukraine, including on the maternity ward, and the site the attack we included rapidly. Getting to the research site in a world town, the country is the treasures of the health individuality. What is you patient has studied for cancer only study diabetic type. This in the globe. Yeah, is this Ukrainian research and health biobanking in under condition present as a biobank present. The claims is a clinical trial possibility. It's this clinical time of the research and opportunity, facility, and the research equipment, and the biobank equipment methods. With this simulation on the group research academical and biobanking staff career. This place in next slide is big, very big problem. It's logistic. It's all impossible to ship biosamples from Ukrainian and investigation medical products in vivo and in vitro into Ukraine from the sponsors. The materials requirements is a biobank and the clinical trial located in the Kiev and Kharkiv, which is the combating zone. This problem is the virtual research. It's this now this stability logistic. It's research in this, it's this establishment biomaterial logistics, the transport critical biomaterial research on the cell and gene therapy, logistic in material needed in the biobank and the clinical trial, the cryo tubes, and the cryo media in solution, and reagent, and dry ice, and nitrogen, the stock management and the quality control marketing and calling, biobanking working, present in the research focus, evidence and the biobank support on the research, virtual research client meeting, engine research and biobank conference. And and in conclusion, is the West and some central parts of Ukraine research group and the confidence my work last click by my phone. The efforts in the Ukraine Associated Biobank team, the head of department and my family, we have successfully transported all biomaterial from the biobank in Kharkiv to safe and this secure place in the West Ukrainian. At the moment, medical and laboratory staff is working on the consultation and the procedure and the SOPs. They're currently working and the creating all the necessary in condition. The group is also founding the house support people screening in the Poland and Hungary and Austria. They can continue treatment and precipitation. The remotely it's the trial site and the choice continue. It's now in this very big tank. My friends and my colleague in the Austria, and my colleague in Bulgaria, and very, very thank my friend in Austria and my lab staff in Austria. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Svetlana. Next up, we have Karine. She's going to talk about medical burn efforts for Ukraine.
So one of my nursing jobs, probably one of my favorite nursing jobs, was actually working in a burn ICU for about 11 years. I was kind of pushed into it. It's not exactly what I wanted to do, but I ended up loving it. So when I hear anything about burn casualties or people getting burned, I empathize and understand that 100% what you go through. I worked at an intense ICU in Washington, D.C., and it was a great experience. I had hoped that a physician that I worked with at that burn ICU was able to join us. He works at UCLA right now. He is part of their professor tenure program. He's also an American trauma surgeon. Very established gentleman, and also has really extended efforts to Ukraine that I just really want to mention. So the American Burn Association is fully involved with trying to show their telepresence and also medical supplies over to Ukraine for their burn casualties. The main one was, I guess, when there was an overnight missile struck close to the Polish border about March 13th, 14th. We reached out to the ABA for guidance, just as far as guidelines and actionable triage guideline to counsel with. Right now, the ABA is working on just-in-time education materials. They've put together a WhatsApp for physicians for Ukraine burn help to reach out to each other and get their questions asked, whether it's clinical or medical needs that they need. The ABA central office is also distributing burn care materials to Ukraine. American College of Surgery, Clinical Committee on Trauma also have been very involved with just-in-time training with the Ukraine physicians. Dr. Jang is head of the disaster committee there, and full support he gives to his Ukraine military brothers. He's also a ex-military from the Navy here in the U.S. So with that being said, a lot of my volunteer efforts, if you say, are connected with different burn centers to see how we can also extend efforts over to Ukraine and also into Poland and other areas where the burn victims could be transported. So there's also medical supplies needed, and the ABA is working on that. There's about, I don't know, maybe 36 burn centers in the U.S. That are certified. So in other words, they do take ICU victims, and they are working on getting transportation over, if needed, to the U.S. for that, as well as setting up different camps in Ukraine and Poland. So I really just felt I wanted to share that on our roundtable today, and say that, with the missiles and what has been done in Ukraine, this has really increased the burn patient impact, and that U.S. are really extending efforts the best way we can. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Also, ABA is very easy to correspond with on their website. Please feel free to reach out and ask any questions to them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Daria. Next, we have Anshuman Sharma. He's the head of product at Bioformis, and he is going to talk about applying lessons learned from COVID to the reality of the war in Ukraine. So, Anshuman?
Thank you, Denise, and thank you to Ellen and Ilya, through which I've had the opportunity and very gracious to be a part of this cohort here discussing continuing clinical research in these trying circumstances. It seems hardly fair that we're sort of burdened by one crisis after the other. And if there is a silver lining, if we can actually look at anything we can learn from this, is that we've survived one or almost survived one, and we can sort of take some of those learnings from the COVID disruptions to clinical research that can be sort of parlayed into what we can provide for continuing clinical research within Ukraine and clinical sites that are continuing to sort of support clinical research, even though some of the sites have been affected. So, as Ellen had earlier mentioned, there are a fair number of ongoing clinical studies, upwards of 400 ongoing sites, as per clinicaltrials.gov, that are continuing to run in Ukraine. Ukraine, of course, has been able to provide a very strong recruitment for a lot of clinical studies, and invariably results in a very high participation rate, almost 3 to 7 times of what we are able to get in North America and Western Europe, and that has really been instrumental in Ukraine sort of rising up the ranks and attracting clinical trial activity over the last 10 years. Also, I think it was perhaps previously mentioned that the centralized healthcare system in Ukraine also lends itself to large hospital bed capacity and large clinical trials being run. Of course, a lot of that is now being affected. So from my vantage point, I am a healthcare technology professional, and I've worked in clinical research as a vendor to CRO and pharma companies in various parts of the globe. Part of my work at Bioformis was instrumental in standing up clinical trials in areas affected by COVID and allowing for clinical research to be conducted on samples and COVID patients. And one of the things that we, as the vendor community, have been able to sort of step up to is to provide remote patient monitoring and provide decentralized clinical trial support for pharma and CRO customers. And of course, not all of this is possible for every possible trial, and it does have certain ramifications as to changes in protocol design. But as we've learned in COVID times, these have been approved by both central and local IRBs, and there's guidance that I can sort of point to that was issued by EMA on how to manage clinical trials during the COVID pandemic, and then more specifically, guidance around the methodological aspects of ongoing clinical trials, of how to sort of deal with data and data disruption. And then more specifically, where some of the technology has been able to step in being able to take trials that are being run in different parts of the globe, and is to sort of look at a technique called federated data access, which allows specific data that is captured in distributed fashion to be put together without necessary centralization of this data into at the end of the trial process. And so, using federated data access, we can demonstrate that the efficacy of these federated learning methods give us the same or very similar performance for around clinical endpoints as shown by area under curves and sort of ROC calculations. So what our company has been able to do is provide both the analytical services for conducting clinical trials in a decentralized fashion, but also the remote patient monitoring solutions that can help provide patient monitoring while they're away from an inpatient or an outpatient setting. I'll stop there and happy to sort of take questions later on.
Thank you, Anshuman. Much appreciated. Sorry, Denise, didn't mean to jump on you there. Nope. Awesome. You know, to me, it's crazy. We get through COVID, and now we're learning and applying things to this and what's next. And it's, you know, yes, I am a glass is half full kind of guy, but it weighs heavily on the mind when you think about one after the other and the impact on the globe. So speaking on impact on the globe, I'm going to turn this momentarily back over to Ellen, but I wanted to jump in and sort of highlight the fact that today's program varies greatly from what we normally do with our programs. Insofar as that, you're going to hear from Ellen about two really critical and important organizations, and we as the Westchester Biotech Project community are asking our members to support and donate these organizations. They're both organizations that Ellen works closely with, and obviously, as if you all heard, there's very personal connections here, and the work that's being done is grave and urgent. Real quick, the two organizations that you'll hear about, the first is RAISM, which was created to provide urgent help and support in the face of this extreme and unforeseen situation in Ukraine. They are responding to this catastrophic emergency by providing critical medical supplies and amplifying the voices of Ukraine. The second organization is Ukraine TrustChain, which funds aids evacuations for Ukrainians in the active war zone. It consists of small teams that can go where big international organizations are just unable to get to provide urgent food, medical supplies, and rides to safely. Your donation goes directly to the front lines and quickly where it is desperately needed. So with that, let me turn it over to our friend Ellen.
Thank you so much, Michael. Actually, I would like to show the video for Razum for Ukraine. And if you give me 1 second, on top of the, so let me share my screen. I apologize. On top of everything that's going on today with the presentations and everything, I had to run out to pick up my daughter. So I'm actually parked in the car right now and sharing from my car.
Well, that's another great learned lesson from the COVID, Zoom, sorry.
Razum, which means together in Ukrainian, is a nonprofit organization that is now made up of 60,000 donors and dedicated volunteers. Our team comes from all walks of life. We're passionate professionals from various industries, including tech, finance, marketing, medicine, arts, academia, and law, with substantial experience across NGOs and charitable foundations. We've united our forces for one simple mission: to build a more prosperous Ukraine. But right now, we're most focused on saving lives and stopping the war. What started as a volunteer-driven organization, created after Ukraine's Revolution of Dignity in 2014, is now a verified 501c3, with a donation pipeline upwards of $20 million. Following the Russian attack since February 24, our global community has become more united than ever. Razum quickly mobilized an emergency response fund to save lives. To this day, we have safely delivered close to 200 pallets of technical medical equipment and critical medical supplies to Ukraine, with much more on the way. Our team is also working on evacuating children with special needs, as well as their families, to safety. Our advocacy team has worked on getting Capitol Hill to legislate for investments in Ukraine, hold leaders and companies accountable for enabling the Russian war machine, and urge them to help displaced Ukrainians in the US and refugees abroad. We, Razomci, amplify the strong voices of the Ukrainian people so that Ukraine and Ukrainians can be known around the world. Together, we will build a more prosperous Ukraine. To find out more about our work and support us through donations, please visit razomforukraine.org.
Thank you. And I don't know, I might be dating myself, but remember the IBM commercial when it started out as one large IBM letters, and then it kind of had to go through little holes somewhere, and it split into tiny little IBMs, and then it came together again. So Razom's now a very, very large organization. I'm privileged to have been with Razom, which means together in English, since 2014. Ilya Knizhnik is going to talk about Ukraine TrustChain, practically brand new, but super mighty organization. And I just want to say, don't ever be afraid to ask a friend of a friend of a friend, because that's how we roll. And everybody I know is a volunteer by now. And an interesting twist of fate, 4 years ago, I actually met Svetlana and Karine in person in Dallas at the Biobanking conference. Little did we know that we will ever see each other again and be connected in such a special way. And shout out to Priyanka Ranwal, a journalist who needed somebody to interpret, and somebody would just shout it out in the group, can somebody interpret? And I said, I will. And it turns out it was Svetlana. So we're all connected, and there is place for, there is room for everyone. Everyone can do whatever you can. There's no thing too small or too big. And what Ilya is going to talk about, it's just going to blow your mind too. So thank you, and go ahead, Ilya.
Hi, my name is Ilya Knizhnik. Yes, the Russian pronunciation is Ilya. I'm based in Philadelphia, and I work as an IT manager in healthcare and also with clinical trials. I'm here not in that capacity, although I'm very happy to speak later on the impact of the loss of technology, what happens when you lose years of data. But I'm here as a co-founder of Ukraine TrustChain. I was born in Kiev. That's where I grew up. That's where my family has lived for generations. And my family goes back over 250 years in Ukraine. This is so incredibly personal. It's hard to describe in the short span I have. So I want to start off with a brief video that has been made by my organization, Ukraine TrustChain, which is a new nonprofit. It's just come together in the last 2 months, and that describes some of what we've done and some of the impact. I want to warn you that there are a few images of destruction, no graphic images of bodily harm. And I also want to preface this by saying that there's no stock footage. There's no professional videographers. Every photo and every image you see is directly from Ukraine, from the ground within the last several months. So with that, I'm going to share the video. And I'm going to say a few words afterwards as well. And then I'm happy to take any questions in the end during the roundtable. Okay, thank you. So we're a relatively small organization, or at least we started out small, where a lot of friends who knew each other, who were all connected to Ukraine. Some of us from there, others from Russia, Belarus, Moldova, and elsewhere. And we started with our personal funds to see what we could do. We had personal connection to a lot of the initial volunteers, and we grew very quickly. There's several hundred people inside Ukraine that are doing this work daily, and the U.S. operations team of 24. What makes, I think, Ukraine TrustChain different than a lot of the other organizations is that we're entirely volunteer-run and highly grassroots. We have a very low cost structure, and the number that I want people to remember, I think there's a lot of numbers, but there's two numbers I want to focus on. One is that we've evacuated over 26,000 people from war zones, not from safe cities, not from cities with functioning rail. This is from small villages, from basements, from under fire, from orphanages in areas that were controlled by Russians. And the second number is that the average cost to evacuate an individual from those zones is the same as a large Starbucks latte, about $5. We are very small and grassroots and distributed, but we work at scale, delivering tons of aid and food, and any donations to the organization will go directly to Ukraine immediately and will be put to good use. There's incredibly powerful stories behind each of the little segments of that video. Like the one I think I just want to mention, there's a lady named Karine. She's kneeling down with the one child and smiling. That was in the refugee center for 350 people. They built that together in 36 hours. They found in Dnipro, they found the space, they painted it, added, and when I say built together, I mean they added electrical, plumbing, furniture, all in 36 hours immediately. And now there's over 100 people that are housed there. Typically people who are coming either from Kharkiv or Mariupol areas. And then I think the one other story I just want to quickly mention, I think in a part of that video, there's a volunteer named Ksenia. She's one of the leaders of the Kiev team. She hands a lollipop to a kid from the back of the car. She was recently awarded a medal in Ukraine for her brave efforts. She arrived in this village following the demining team. There's still mines and ordnance everywhere. And I think right after, she asked one of the kids there where she could use the bathroom. And the kid said that there's no bathroom. But if you go in these bushes by the house, it's safe. But don't go into the bushes on the other side, they're mined. So that's the reality, and that's what's on the ground. And I'm happy to take any questions and explain more. There's incredibly powerful stories behind each moment in that video. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilya. So I'm at a loss for words. It's very hard. Again, like with Ilya, everything's very personal. Somehow it happened that both Lana and I see other people here, some other people here from Kharkiv as well. Just so happened. So Denise, Joanne, is this the time we transition into a roundtable discussion now? Okay, so again, welcome everybody. We'd like to hear from everyone. That's the beauty of the roundtables. And as I mentioned, let's talk about how we can pull together and tackle this huge issue, how we can help clinical research, clinical trials, biobanks, companies in the times of disasters, wars, hurricanes, earthquakes, and so forth. And again, I mentioned the Clinical Research Hub. Svetlana was saying about how important it is to communicate. The logistics is a huge issue. We know for a fact that it's been incredibly difficult sometimes to coordinate logistics, even between the established NGOs and small, and the needs of the people on the ground. a couple of use cases. For example, Svetlana was evacuating her collection literally in between the bombings from Kharkiv, got the collection of samples to West Ukraine, then was thinking of relocating somewhere else. Where do we get dry ice? So the hub would be the place where the researchers, the patients, the pharmaceutical companies, the CROs, the vendors, the care teams for the patients would go to. It literally would be one click, one phone call with the staff manning the hotlines that would be able to connect them and figure things out and help with the whatever those what the needs are. Another case, for example, the patient who participated in clinical trial has to run away, from home, winds up on the Polish border. Some of our friends are volunteering there as medics. What if this person was on an experimental drug for quote unquote stroke, doesn't know anything else, but then the medic picks up the phone, calls the hotline or looks up online, puts in a request, and we, like the group on the back end, is able to figure out what study the patient's on, connect with the study team, figure out if what's going on, is the patient, is perhaps unblindings involved, what would be the care of the patient, maybe this patient needs to be sent for urgent lab check. So that's another case. And yet another one, because we'd like to look at things from different perspectives. Let's look at it from the big pharma perspective, from the sponsor. You have a fantastic clinical trial, but you have 3 people lost to follow-up, and the regulatory just like insists that you find out what's going on with these people. Well, again, a phone call, a click, an inquiry, and we're able to collect and get the information from the ground up and figure out, yes, this patient is safe and sound somewhere in Switzerland, just unable to connect with the study team. And this hub would be able to do that. So everybody's welcome to, I can't wait to hear your thoughts, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Hello, everyone. I'm Joanne here. I'm the co-founder and executive director for Westchester Biotech Project, and we are very, very happy to extend our platform and so appreciative of everyone's coming together today. In this part, we will actually call on people on the call. You're all invited to put your cameras on if you want to. Imagine this is a little more like the coffee clutch. And we're going to start with Karine, and you will please introduce yourself and ask any questions and make any comments you'd like to. You need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, I am Karine. Actually, I am the founder of BioBank Graz at Medical University Graz. You may know that BioBank. And currently, I am the head of international biobanking and education at the same university. And I'm giving lectures in all master courses that are existing in Europe for biobanking. And I'm a biobank educator and biobank enthusiast. By heart. So I understood each single move that the people have done for saving the biobanks and the samples, and I understand how important that is. Nevertheless, I would wish that they wouldn't be forced to do that. In other hand, I am myself in my previous life that I have forgotten for several years, luckily forgotten. I have been a military surgeon in open war. So I unfortunately understand these situations, but because I feel them on my own skin, which is, just trust me, completely different, as you just hear. Although I see very, very many people that are very empathic, and it's something very nice, but I feel with each single Ukrainian person. what I would say that there are several investigations and collections that have been also collected after Iraq War that have shown huge difference between predominance of, for instance, cancer, or not only in psychiatry and psychology, but also in cancer and in autoimmune diseases after the war in very short time. And maybe in one hand, we need to think about how to save what we have. But on the other hand, we need to think about what is coming next. Also, there is another point that maybe the biobankers need to think about, then that would be the collection of the samples of wounded people. Because this is the only way to show with which substances these people were wounded. And this would be very important. And I have seen that after the recent war in Armenia, where they used the phosphorates, which is actually worldwide not allowed. So, and Russia was also in between in that. So who knows? I would actually also think over to organize something to collect wounded people who are saved. And I understand that it's very difficult, trust me, if somebody understands, that's me, but we never are allowed to think differently, as it will be once better. And we need to live with consequences. And I would think today about already future, which are our, let's say, ideas to make better future, that something like this doesn't happen. In one hand, in another hand, I mean, I understand that no researcher, neither in Ukraine nor in all over the world, nor even in Russia, wants that war. So maybe we can think over to mobilize that idea of researchers, because we are very competitive, but only on paper. And this is something much better than the politicians do. So maybe we can teach them how to be competitive only in paper and be in real life really best friends. That's from my side.
That's beautiful. So being competitive and only on paper, I think that's a pretty beautiful idea. I'm going to just start calling on people. If your camera's on, I'm more likely to pick you. So Priyanka, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself next. But if you can't use your camera and you would like to participate, feel free to put up your hand and we will call on you. Priyanka, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Joanne. I'm Priyanka. I'm a health and science reporter at National Geographic. I've been in touch with several people here, Svetlana, Ellen, Karine, and that's how I've landed up here. I'm interested in a lot of things that people have said here, including stuff that Karine said, but also something that Ellen mentioned, where people who are enrolled in clinical trials and life-saving experimental drugs that they may be not on placebo, but on the treatment side, I'm curious to know more from Ellen, for instance. Through the hotline, are people actually being connected to other sort of clinical trials, similar-ish clinical trials in other countries, if that's being successful? I've been trying to find a way to write about just the biobanks as well as people who've been affected in terms of the clinical trials that have been going on. So I have more questions than anything else. But thank you so much for organizing this. This is great.
Thanks for being here. Ellen, you have some comments?
I'd like to comment that it's fantastic that Priyanka, you have more questions because definitely there's more to come. You know, this is just the start of this discussion and hopefully collaboration. And you mentioned the hotline. This was just the idea. There's no such thing yet exists. You know, sort of like a clearance house hotline. So again, like Karine said, yes, we have to take care of now, but we have to think into the future. How do we prepare better? And if there's nothing happening right now, but we have things lined up, you know, we are prepared, then God forbid disaster strikes, we're ready. For example, that will involve a lot of communication, collaboration between, let's say, biobanks and labs. Right now, everybody in the business of lab samples and so forth knows you have to leave some space in some other freezers, because if one freezer goes out, you got to move your samples to another one. Well, maybe we can look at it on a global scale, or at least some local, so backups, as well as regulatory. Do we put the material transfer agreement in place ahead of time? Of course, we have to involve regulatory. There's a lot of pre-work that and I'm just like throwing those out based on my research experience. But I feel that, again, there is the local volunteers, the local NGOs, the nimble, agile, mighty, like Ilya's Ukraine TrustChain, the bigger ones like Razom, that are able to supply a lot of equipment. Like if we all come together, very frequently, the organizations, the pharma companies, CROs, they just wouldn't know where to even begin. So it will start just like it starts in some Facebook group. Can somebody check on my aunt in Kharkiv? And yes, we can. We can contact the people. We can figure this out. So thank you. I'm sure Joanne will be in touch. One more mention, during the interview, Svetlana shared, not the interview, like the discussion with Priyanka, Svetlana, that I happened to interpret. Svetlana mentioned that the collection of samples that they had included a lot of samples for non-fatty liver disease. And this is a very important indication even here across the world and here in the US. And there were several clinical trials that were starting on that collection with that indication. So everything, it's not like we are separated, like there's a collection somewhere and just the patients in Ukraine are suffering because there is war or disruption. It's all of us, because it delays wonderful treatments that may be across the globe.
Thank you, Ellen. I want to encourage everybody that would like to put your contact information, your website, your email, whatever you like, right into the chat. And certainly from Ukraine TrustChain, please certainly put the best connection there as well. I'm going to start calling on people. So Andy Zanga, can you unmute yourself and say hello and put your camera on if you can? Andy? I know not everybody has the capability to do that. If you get a chance, Andy, please feel free to unmute yourself. I'd be interested in your perspective. Andy's been a lifelong proponent of incredible technology growth in the biotech world, and we'd love to hear your perspective. Ellen, I'm going to let you call on a couple of people because I think you probably know some of these folks. You want to pick some people that will have to speak up because you're their friend?
Well, so I'm going to see if Dr. Roman Zelensky would like to say something, if he's on. I don't know if he was on earlier today. I don't think he's on anymore, but you know what? I'm going to pick on Darius' son. Would that be all right? Sean, would you like to contribute?
Sean, can you unmute yourself and say hello? I'm sending a little.
I guess I have another person to pick on. My new connection that I'm thrilled, Ina, that you're able to join. Ina Strakovsky is also a Philadelphian, and Ina is a regulatory professional, works for University of Pennsylvania. So Ina, would you be able to say a couple of words? If not, that's okay too.
We've never had such a shy group before.
Okay, well,
So I know that Corey Arendt, you had your camera on for a moment. Would you like to say hello and introduce yourself? Hi there.
Sure, why not? No one else is piping up. My name's Corey Arendt. I work for A2LA, which is an accrediting body here in the United States. We also accredit overseas. I'm the program manager of the biological area within ISO 17025, but I also manage the biobanking program for ISO 20387. So more along mostly preclinical, but all of that adds up to what you all are involved in. And while I don't know what I could do, I gave my information, and I'd be more than willing to assist in any way that I can.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or?
Not particularly. I got this. I was interested in this webinar from getting it from ISBR, which is a international biorepository group, which I'm a member of. And so when anything comes up, biobanking, regulatory, anything like that, I'm always interested to join and hop on.
Oh, welcome.
Yep, thank you.
Ellen, do you have any questions for Corey?
So I would love to follow up and hear your thoughts on, because you are accrediting biobanks here in the US and also abroad, how you might envision pulling together this collaboration to help disaster zones. In 2 words, if you can.
So I think that it would garner this, or we would need to garner the support of ILAC and APAC and IAF and the EU, who all are regional bodies, to figure out some sort of way to assist, to give back, because we are all in that public health realm. I think that would be the biggest resources, and there is an ISO standard for social responsibility, and I feel like this kind of is involved with it, and so getting, I don't know, there could be committees surrounding ISO to I don't think anyone could ever prepare for anything like this. So starting another committee or something like that to revolve around it, I don't have a first clue, but it's probably going to come from support through those regional bodies and the international body like ILAC, APAC, or over in Europe, it's the EU, and their regional body. In the Americas, it's IAF. A lot of acronyms being thrown around, but I think it would need some push with them.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we are creating framework here, aren't we? Kind of thinking of that.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking, Ellen, of New York Medical College, which is based in Westchester. So Westchester County is just north of New York City. It's a bedroom community to New York, and it's right on the train route to Boston. So it's in the middle of the whole megalopolis for the Northeast. At New York Medical College, they have a specialty in disaster response. And a lot of it's very hands-on, EMT oriented, but not entirely. Like they have buildings that they keep in disrepair so that people can practice how do you work your way through a building that's half fallen down and so on. but that there may be an interest there in taking a look at this as well, Ellen. And I appreciate that there are a lot of regulatory bodies that would have to buy in, and you'll be hearing from us, Corey, to talk about that further, because your knowledge would be really valuable in this.
That's fine.
Great. Let's see. So Tatiana Prichakova, I hope probably not saying that very well, but Tatiana, would you like to say hello?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana Petrochkova. I'm the head of the Biomedical Research Department at Audubon Bioscience. We are the provider of the biospecimens and biospecimen-related data globally, even though we were founded in the States, but most of our operations were in Ukraine. We had an office in Kiev, and we were operating all over Ukraine, and most of our work was done from Ukraine, including most of our collections were perspective collections, but the biorepository that we had was also in Kiev. And we have been affected heavily, just like Svetlana was saying. Our contingency plan was something very similar to theirs. Me, myself, being from Kiev, I had to evacuate too. Again, as a part of our contingency plan, some of us are located in Poland and other parts of the world. Our CEO, Rostislav Semikov, has also joined all the forces and has been trying to be located in Texas in our headquarters. He has been actively meeting with senators, with the politicians, with everybody that he possibly can to schedule the delivery of the clinical supplies and everything necessary to Ukraine. So I'm thinking that this could be shared as well, and we could connect with ISBER Society and share that as well with everybody. Again, being in contact with Ukraine Ministry of Health, and everything seems to be getting back to normal in some of the areas of Ukraine, be it Western Ukraine and Central Ukraine. We are hopeful that operations and the clinics could return back to work and the patients could get back to normal and get their treatments. Including our facilities like ours, that we could get back to operating at least at some level. So this is my piece.
Thank you so much. So thrilled that you're safe and that you were able to join. And as far as advocacy, Brazom is doing a lot of advocacy in Washington, and perhaps we can maybe I can approach Brazom, at least bring the organization to their attention too.
Absolutely.
We're building a nice committee here already, Ellen. I like this. We just have a few more minutes, and I think maybe it'd be nice to hear one more time from each of our speakers. Any further comments, anything that you wanted to make sure that we talk about today? And I'd like to start with you, Ilya. I know you had a little more you wanted to talk about.
Sure, thank you. I could talk about this work all day. I mean, I do talk about this work all day, but I think I want to highlight the importance of a couple of things. One is that listening to Ukrainian voices and the importance of taking direction from those from Ukraine and those on the ground. As an example of where aid work goes wrong, delivering 5 tons of food to feed 10,000 people. From US, you're looking at about, with shipping, maybe close to 250,000. From Europe, you could probably do it in 150,000. We did it from one part of Ukraine to another, to the 5 restaurants that our organization runs for free in Kiev at a cost of $5,000. There's reasons for that, because it's all locally run. We've supported a lot of healthcare facilities, from delivering generators to extra refrigerators to certain supplies which I don't want to go into publicly, but they have to do with things that were found in Bucha and all the Kiev suburbs and all the horrible things. We've been very embedded. Ukraine needs an incredible amount of help. If you have access to large-scale medical supplies, that is one of the top things that it needs. Large-scale, diverse medical supplies that can be provided and shipped directly to destination. Unless you have access to surface-to-air missiles, that's probably one of the top things that you could do to help. And then the other ones are donate to organizations that are directly on the ground that make your money go further. Don't send socks and canned goods. There is enough of that in Ukraine. Certain medical supplies, continue to advocate, continue to listen to the voices of Ukrainians, and most importantly, I know I don't have to say this to anyone on this call, but beyond this call, don't forget about Ukraine. It's hard, there's so many problems in life, and for a lot of people, it's easier to just kind of, okay, it's just another war, it's going on, but it's absolutely horrible, and it's going on right now, and there are things that you can do to help. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm available anytime someone wants to speak about organization or collaboration, and my information's in the chat as well as the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilya. And Sean, are you back online and would like to say a couple of words?
Hello, everyone. I'd just like to say molodzi on your presentation, or congratulations. It's so wonderful to see so many people doing work in whatever capacity they can to help out. For those of you who don't know, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Ukraine. I still have my host family is there, and they would probably be so grateful for all the help that is occurring overseas, that's being organized. Yeah, I just pass it forward from them and say thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We can say we're adjourned for people who need to leave right at 2 o'clock, but I think let's take just a few more minutes because I think we need to hear from Svetlana again. Can you unmute yourself, Svetlana, and share any thoughts?
Света, теперь можешь говорить, я буду переводить. Просят, если хочешь, можешь сказать пару слов?
Да, в общем-то, я бы хотела просто всем сказать спасибо. Спасибо за возможность, которую вы открыли сегодня.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for the opportunity that opened up today.
Спасибо моим друзьям, которые присутствуют здесь. И спасибо коллегам.
Thank you to my friends who are here today.
Я надеюсь всех увидеть на ISBER.
I hope to see everyone at the ISBER conference.
Я думаю, что мы с моими коллегами должны начинать писать уже новую книгу о плане устойчивого развития биобанков в военных условиях.
I think my colleagues and I need to start writing a new book about the sustainable biobank, biobanking during the war times.
И я думаю, что несмотря на то, что это очень страшная ситуация, она поможет нам найти новые этапы развития и способы помощи пациентам.
Even though that this is a horrific situation, I still think that it will help us to find new solutions and how to new development and how to help our patients.
May I say something if you are ready? Because I know why she spoke about the book. I mean, we have written a book. I mean, can you see it?
What? Great.
It's a Springer book about biobanks in low and middle income countries. And I just got it today. I'm holding it first time in my hands. And we haven't had any idea to put their military situation, actually, war situation. We have had specific, risk management for hurricanes and for rains and for earthquakes, but nobody thought about that something like this can happen at the moment that we have written, because it was more than 50% based on Ukraine Biobanking Association. So, well, that's why I'm showing that maybe we can write another book, how it functioned, the knowledge that we have in our hands. So.
And you're one of the authors, Karine, you're one of the authors of that book?
I'm the first, I'm the first author. Svetlana is the last author, and we are editors. And Bertolt Tuppert is the middle one. But we have altogether more than 50 authors for each chapter, coming from overall in the world, from Africa, from Switzerland, even from Russia. From Armenia. I mean, we have so many authors that we have invited to contribute because it was for us very important to show that there is a big difference if you are in a developed country and in a developing country to build up a biobank. And what are the specific challenges and how to meet them. And this book is about that. So we invited several people. We have also the WHO, the IARC, and they're collecting all over the world, especially in low and middle income countries. So CISIS contributed several chapters. And it's so sad. We can even not make a party because we got it right now. I have promised Svetlana a party, but she doesn't want to have one. So we will postpone that party. And maybe for the next one, for the version 2.0, we will add the military risks also. We should actually.
Well, let this little reception be a blessing on that book and all the work that you did and your ongoing growth, really. Thank you. Anshuman, would you like to say some final words?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne and Ellen, for inviting me to this. Again, I was just actually about to type in my message, so I'll sort of stop short of that. Thank you for inviting, and of course, Ilya, Ukraine TrustChain, very, very telling what that organization has been able to do in a very short order and short period of time. Having been part of many startups in my own career, I can definitely appreciate how quickly a movement takes shape. And yes, it's oftentimes chaotic, but it's chaos that functions and can really move things very, very quickly at the point of care where things are needed. So kudos to that team and how quickly they've come together. I, of course, was speaking both from my own personal experience across the medical clinical research community, but more so, and then in how a continuing, readiness for how disaster affects clinical and medical research. And I think we sort of we can't really stand and wait for the next disaster to come about. We just have to be in this constant state of readiness. Whether it's having backup sites that are always ready, or utilizing technology-based solutions that, of course, will allow important clinical research to continue, because some of these drugs take 6 to 8 years to come to market, and so that's the reality for some of these rare diseases as well as oncology-based treatments. But of course, it's also, to Ellen's point, the people and the patients that are affected in the near and immediate term, they need our support more than ever, because they are the ones that are displaced. They're the ones that are off treatment. They're the ones that are off placebo treatments, even though in some cases, those treatments are life-saving. And I think I'm happy to help in any way possible in a personal capacity as well as a professional capacity to this organization and anything that's associated with it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite Daria and then Ellen and then Michael for the last word. Daria?
Well, I just want to thank everybody. It's really been quite impactful, but you know, this is truly just the beginning. Right before this, the other day when I was speaking with Ellen, I said, you know, this is just really a stepping stone because this war is not going anywhere, just even as far as the repercussions are concerned. So we will continue with this as part of our strong clinical research cohort topic. And please invite anyone that you feel would love to be involved with what we see as going forward and helping not only clinical research, but also the patients that this involves. You know, CROs and big pharma do take responsibility or should take responsibility for their patients. When someone does sign up for a clinical trial and they are lost to follow, it's a lot different when they're lost to follow because of a war situation versus a loss to follow because they choose not to be part of the trial. So I think there is such a thing as we know as compassionate use, all different other avenues I think that we can look into to furthermore help clinical research patients in these sort of devastating situations. So I want to again thank all the speakers. You guys were great. And Ilya, I will definitely be reaching out to you on a personal level. I love what you're doing. I love your vision. I love your video you showed as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Michael. Oh, yeah, Ellen, sorry.
There are some people who I was really wanting to call on, but I don't know if we have any time. So I just want to say, Osman,
they're still here. If you want to call them
here and want to say say hello. And there was Mikola. I wasn't sure if he was here, where in the world or in Ukraine. So okay, Inga Laurinaitytė, right? Did I say it right? Would you like to say hello?
Hello. Hello. I'm Inga Laurinaitytė. I'm from Lithuania, Santaros Klinics Biobank. So I heard about this meeting like 2 hours before it started. So I'm just want to say thank you. It was really interesting and enlightening. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for joining. And Osman, would you like to say hello too?
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's 10 p.m. in Dubai, and I heard about that talk from ISBER. I'm an ISBER member, and yeah, I recently joined the university here at Mohammed bin Rashid University of Medical College and Health Sciences to start a biobank. So hopefully in a couple of years, hopefully we'll hear more about biobanking activities in Dubai.
Very interested in that. Well, I think we have heard from everyone. Michael, would you like to bring us home?
Absolutely. I will just say that seeing the participants today from all over the globe, from various walks of life and perspectives, both on the science and Ukraine, gives me hope that while things are bad now, we believe and know they can get better. So I thank everyone today for your contributions to this program. More importantly, to all of you and your contributions to the people of Ukraine. Please stay safe. And as Ilya said, let's not forget. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay in touch.
Thank you. We'll be following up, right? And I think there's a lot of
Absolutely
good opportunity there. Thank you so much, Svetlana. And again, thank you for your courage and what you're doing today. It's amazing. Karine, lovely to meet you and really appreciate this. And we'll talk again, I hope.
Sure.
Asman.
Thank you very much. Ciao.
Ciao.
Take care.